So South African youth can seize opportunities presented by the fourth industrial revolution, such as machine learning, robotics and advanced manufacturing. Now, researchers are at the forefront of cutting-edge technologies. So now Dr. Monnamme Tlotleng, who's a senior researcher, will be speaking to us now from Pretoria. Doc, thank you very much for your time this evening. You know, I think, first of all, talk to us a bit about your work as a scientist.
Thank you for having me, and good evening to your viewers. The work of a scientist is quite very nice, and it's the most easiest work of them all, because you not only doing what you love, you do what impacts on society and the global space or the global economy. So for that reasons, that's why I enjoy my work as a scientist.
Well, if we talk about robotics, in the fourth industrial revolution, I think, many people are asking what kind of skills, can young people such as yourself and myself need in the future to thrive in this fourth industrial revolution?
Well, it's no brainer that the requirements from the fundamental basic education would always be science and maths. Coupled with technical drawing and things like computing, which make the fundamental basis of one who wants to thrive in this industry. But then if you go into the university, of course you have to do the hardcore sciences, your computer science, your engineering, your physics, your metallurgy, your chemical engineering, because really the opportunity within the 4IR presents us with multiple disciplinaries. It's no longer a one stream fits all. We see a lot of people where we have hybrid degrees, people taking one subject here, one and the other in another field, to couple such that they can place themselves squarely well within this revolutionary, because it's mainly about computing, it's about understanding programming, it's about understanding how you can use a computer program language to enable robots, and how these robots can be used in industries for positive impacts, of course.
Whenever we talk about the fourth industrial revolution, I always look to, deep rural areas where, for example, you would have in schools young people having access, to computers only when they reach the university level. That is a reality. Of course, in some places, a lot of progress has been made. We're seeing tablets now being introduced to schools, but the reality is that in majority of some of these schools, access to a computer and getting to use all of this kind of machinery still remains a pipe dream. How do young people in the rural setting equip themselves at this stage to be able to fit in and access those opportunities?
Well, I must say it's very difficult. I'm talking from a perspective of myself. Of course, I was born in Mafikeng in a rural village called Lotlhakan. But that hasn't stopped me from being able to become who I am and participating in the sphere of revolutionary, as it's been called. But then one cannot make that a case study. What we need to be doing as government, we need not to go into these things with a blind eye, for example. And I always make an example that if the government or the parliament, for that matter, they know that in the next 5 years to 20 years, we will be investing in 4IR, and where are the opportunities within that? Therefore, they must pre-plan for basic education to make sure that our future generations, which will be the youth, will be properly planned within that space. So you are quite right talking about the lack of infrastructures in schools, especially in the deep rural areas, and that if we are not careful as a country, we're going to see the youth gap between the ones that are affording and the ones that are not affording widening, especially because this 4IR thing is presenting opportunities for those who have the skills to participate in it.
So how do you then envisage government would be able to assist in this regard? I mean, you have young people, for example, who want to seize these opportunities. We're talking about machine learning and robotics, and of course, all of those things need to come with the right infrastructure, as you correctly point out, in our schools from a very young age, so that these opportunities are accessible not to just a few who have the privilege to access them, but of course the ones of most concern in the rural areas who've long been left out.
You know, I'm quite one of the generations that were able to, you know, benefit a lot in government funds for educational purposes. And one of the first fundamental thing that I remember is during the wave when, for example, we were entering into this nuclear industry where we were trying to build the PBMR, if you can remember.
Yeah.
There was this thing from the Department of Science called Dinaledi High Schools, which its sole role purpose was to make sure that kids in high schools and secondary level, they are prepared to uptake opportunities within the nuclear space, to an extent that some of us, we were trained through that. We even got scholarships to go into schools and universities to study further within that space. But I don't know whether the government is currently developing a similar project or a similar structure of education towards 4IR. And for me, the benefit would be for government to pre-plan at lower level education, because it really doesn't matter. When you reach university, there's so much you need to learn to be able to participate in a normal programming of the university. Imagine now when you have to be bombarded with making artificial robots that must talk to human beings. You haven't seen a computer at an early age. Yeah. So those are the very, very fundamental challenges that needs to be addressed today by the basic education. Of course, these things are not going to be a one department solution problem. Yeah. They have to be a collectively discussed problems that needs an immediate solution, because we are no longer talking with 4IR as if it's a future thing. It's already happening. Yeah. The question is, what have we done as a country to prepare our young generations to uptake these things going further into the future?
So how can we keep up? Because, of course, if we're to compete internationally as well, we're obviously going to need, young people who are able to have the requisite skills in order to compete, whether it's in South Africa or internationally. How do we not see ourselves being left behind? Yes, we can start with the schooling system itself, but what more can we do to equip ourselves?
And that question is very relevant, because one of the problems that I always address with my professional group is that we should not feel comfortable sitting at the CSIR where we have a lot of these things, but we are not fully exposing the young ones to these resources. So what we have done, especially as an institution, is that we have a group of professionals who are activating learners at primary schools, high school level in the deep rural areas of South Africa, showing them how these things work. So, but it's not enough. It cannot be left to certain individuals. I think everyone who's responsible within this sphere of a wave. I mean, we know we have a commission that was established by the president most recently on this 4IR. The question we must ask them is, what is their plan? We know we're talking smart cities, we're talking a whole lot of good health, good economy, but are we talking also good education? Because one thing that we should not miss is misaligning the 4IR with what is called the Millennium Set Goals, because one of the Millennium Set Goals that we need to resolve also as a country can be squarely resolved with 4IR issues, and of course other means of science and engineering abilities. But if we are not going to be careful and we are not driving towards a basic understanding of how these things are going to impact not just rural people in this country, but the deepest rural, even people in places, I don't know what's it called in English. Those are still our citizens. We need to touch bases with them and put them into this mainstream, because eventually what we are looking to as a country is to have a positive future for all who are born in it. Yes.
And certainly young people all need to be equipped for. Thank you very much for your time indeed there, Dr. Monnamme Tlotleng, who is a senior researcher and a young scientist, talking to us about the fourth industrial revolution. And I think it's quite important that he mentions, of course, the president in his State of the Nation address, talking about these smart cities, and obviously they're going to be people are going to be needed to be equipped with that kind of knowledge and skill to achieve those smart cities. Well, let's take a short break here on The Full View. We'll have more news when we get back.